The Smashing Machine is directed and written by Benny Safdie, one of the two Safdie brothers behind Adam Sandler's 2019 Uncut Gems, which was great. Benny is actually on his own now, this time with The Smashing Machine, while his brother Josh is about to release Marty Supreme, which I'm personally really looking forward to seeing, which stars Timothée Chalamet and Gwyneth Paltrow. The film, of course, stars Dwayne Johnson as Mark Kerr, an undefeated MMA fighter in the early days of MMA, and is considered one of the grandfathers of the sport. He deals with opioid addiction, relationship issues, and the feeling of losing a fight for the first time that leads him down a path of self-loathing and self-destruction. After an almost fatal drug overdose, he checks himself into rehab, recovers, and trains again to return to fight in Japan's MMA championship Pride for a shot at redemption. First off, I have to say that this film looks fantastic. Set between 1997 and 2000, everything on the screen looks incredibly authentic. To the clothing, the hairstyles, the set design, it's very believable 90s, and it's in that world. The shots in Japan look fantastic and use the aesthetic of their environment to their advantage. The film begins with a series of shots shot on VHS with the sound and look and crackle of VHS, and it was a great choice to start the film with a combination of 16mm film and 35mm and IMAX 70mm film. The film utilizes each frame in a stunning composition for each piece of the film. It was a really bold risk that Safdie takes shooting 16mm, scaling it up for IMAX, but he somehow finds a way to get rid of all the noise and grain that 16mm film blown up to IMAX size would have somehow. And the look is absolutely beautiful. The fight scenes look believable, and I really appreciated how Safdie never lets the camera into the ring, but leaves the camera out of the ring as a spectator, with handheld and shoulder shots that give a little shakiness to the frame, peeking over and around audience spectators through the ropes of the ring like a real spectator watching a real fight. The fights feel very authentic and not over Hollywoodized for emotional effect like you'd see in a Rocky film, which, by the way, isn't a bad thing. Rocky is one of my all-time favorite films, and for a fictional character, the glorified action-packed scenes work really well. But for a true story about a real fighter, I enjoyed this realism more. There are some really great performances here as well, of course, including Dwayne Johnson, who was absolutely born to play this role. And I really enjoyed watching his performance, but at the same time, even though he does look like Kerr because of the prosthetics, it was really difficult not to see Dwayne Johnson. At times, I would in fact see him as Kerr convincingly, but for the most part, I saw just Johnson and heard his voice, which honestly isn't his fault for three reasons, I think. One, he's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he has a persona and brand that is so established that it is incredibly hard not to see him in any performance that he gives. When we go see a Rock movie, we're going because we want to see The Rock. We've been programmed by marketing to kind of think that way. I love seeing him on screen. He has this commanding presence in every film that he does, and I'm a huge fan. And he is so great in really good comedies like Central Intelligence. He really makes that film. And I believe he could do drama, and he does it really well here. The second reason is that this character is a lot like him in ways that it's hard to disconnect the two. In his body frame, of course, both being wrestlers, and even in their soft-heartedness, Mark Kerr at the beginning of the film, where he just beats down on a guy in the ring, is actually concerned for the guy afterwards and asks the referee if he's okay. I've read a lot of stories about Johnson in the public eye, and I hear that he's kind and gentle and just a really good guy. So it's not hard to go back and forth seeing both guys, one in one frame and the other guy in the next frame. The third reason why I mostly saw Johnson and not Kerr is because of the script. I saw Johnson because we don't get a lot of background story on Kerr. After the film, I didn't get a real sense of who Kerr was, so my brain during the film is making the connection to Johnson and not Kerr. The film gave me a curiosity to find out more about Kerr and maybe watch the documentary of the same name, but it really didn't give me any background on the guy. We don't know anything about his family, why he wanted to become a fighter, what he was escaping with his drug addiction. We're just watching events that happen to a guy that we never really get to know in any real deep way. And that's where the film suffers most, in my opinion. On a side note, by the way, Johnson is 53 years old, playing a mid-20s man, which at times was sort of noticeable. But Johnson looks fantastic for his age, and if you didn't know Mark's age at the time of this period film, it may not matter much while watching Johnson's performance. One thing that kind of bothered me about this movie was that Kerr's drug addiction feels very cleaned up and nonchalant, like something you'd see in an old 80s after-school special or some Disney Channel movie. It doesn't feel like the stakes of drug addiction are very high or very risky and raw. It plays it very safe, even to have Johnson's overdose off-screen. It's sort of glossed over, and after he comes back from rehab and dedicates his life to being clean and sober to the point where he judges his girlfriend for taking Tylenol, he ends up giving his trainer opioids when he's in pain from some leftover drugs he had on hand at the gym. It was very confusing because it's never addressed or discussed ever again. The film feels like it cut a lot out in the edit in that way, especially when it comes to Emily Blunt's character Dawn, who's Mark's girlfriend. Blunt gives a fantastic, convincing performance here, especially in a heartbreaking scene where she breaks under the pressure of her and Kerr's relationship. But Blunt's character also seems sidelined most of the time. We also know nothing about her except that she's Mark's girlfriend, with a bit of a codependency issue where she prefers Mark as an addict who she can take care of. She also has one of the best scenes of the film when she's trying to get Kerr on a ride at the fair, and he doesn't want to go because he has a sensitive stomach. And she goes on the ride alone. And she enjoys the solitude for a minute. She feels freed and weightless in what is otherwise a very heavy, kind of controlled relationship. As she's on the ride, the song in the background is John Cicada's Just Another Day, a song about the deep emotional pain of struggling to cope without someone that you love, finding happiness difficult without that person, putting Dawn in two emotional worlds at once. One of happiness on the ride, separated from Mark, and the feeling of not being able to be happy without him. It's such a powerful scene that I've already rewatched a few times now, and it's probably my favorite part of the movie. Ryan Bader, who plays Mark Coleman, Mark's friend, and also MMA fighter, who is also an MMA fighter in real life with no real acting experience, was endearing to watch. Some of the performance he gives can be a little stiff, but at the same time can feel very authentic in a way that he doesn't know how to overact, and his performance feels very authentic because he's not an actor. The end of the film is unexpected if you don't know the story of Kerr, and I enjoyed how it ended for the most part, but in the final shots of the film, they filmed the real Kerr in a grocery store walking around, sort of talking to himself, and it feels a little odd and out of place. He gets in his truck, but before he does, he addresses the camera and says goodbye to the theater goers, and I wasn't really sure why this was in the film at all. The music in this film is really fun, filled with 90s classics like Tempted by Squeeze, Back at One by Brian McKnight, Santeria by Sublime, and so many more classics. The score is interesting where it relies on what I'd call jazz piano in some scenes, bringing chaos in the score in what feels like a tense scene that's about to go south. Some of the score was a little confusing at times, especially in a very strange Star-Spangled Banner number that I couldn't understand the message in the mix of the way that the song was sung. The Smashing Machine is an interesting film that looks incredible with some really great performances from Johnson and Blunt, but unfortunately the script suffers, causing the film to end up with not a lot of depth and character development to get you to really understand the real person Johnson is playing. It feels like a story about a guy who, had some problems, but not any real problems that felt serious, especially when it comes down to the drug addiction. I really had high hopes for this film, especially after seeing Dwayne Johnson get a standing ovation at the screening. But unfortunately, it feels like a 2.5 to 3 star film out of 5 for me. Let's just call it a 3. But it's not a film that I'd really care to see again, unfortunately. The film is rated R for language, drug use, profanity, and of course some MMA violence. So let me know what you thought of The Smashing Machine. Let me know what you thought of Johnson's performance in particular. And was the film missing something to you like it did for me? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe for more reviews of films hitting the theaters. And remember, don't wait till it streams. Let's go to the theater and let's see it together.
Ready?
I think so.
You think so? Come on, Mark, yes or no answer. Come on, are you ready?
Yes.
Marquito is back!
How's that feel?
Feels great.
Do you want some more?
Yes, you can stretch me more, yes.
Too much?
Never.